Hey everyone, welcome back. I have Sierra Smith again from Sun Peak Official, and right now we're going to be talking about failure and what it kind of means to us, and maybe some of the failures that we've been making recently on our journey to entrepreneurship and financial freedom. So, welcome back, Sierra.
Hey, thanks for having me back. I can't say I'm super excited to talk about this, but let's do it.
Well, I think, it becomes more comfortable after a while talking about it because you realize that everyone goes through it and everyone is still learning no matter how successful they are. They're always making failures and kind of trying to overcome that. So maybe can you talk about something that you've maybe failed at recently?
Sure. So I would say, well, that I feel that recently. I'm just someone who takes very, very calculated risk. And so I would say sometimes my failure is like failing to act quickly enough. And I really have struggled with the taking action, um, doing that over fear and just getting comfortable and stalling out and freezing and so I would say that's kind of where I'm at is just I took way too long to reactivate like my business side of things and just I just overthought it and I've overthink posting on social media and I've overthought like how active and like my engagement and stuff like that when I really just need to be like creating and putting it out there and just getting started. And even with YouTube, I know it feels like that, like you just have to start. And so yeah, that's probably where I'm at on that.
Yeah, I think for me, it's, you in the beginning, you kind of worry about failing. That's why, or you think you're going to look stupid or other people out there are going to judge you. But then you realize that people that are kind of in that same tribe or same journey, they're doing all the same things as you, and they're actually looking at you and like, oh, they love what you're doing, they're trying to support you, and they know what you're going through. And I think that's the great part of this journey is that you find other people that are trying to do similar things as you.
Yeah, and I think it's easy to compare ourselves to like the really polished, like professional content that gets produced that, get that does really well. And to think that like, oh, well, that's what people like. They're not gonna like the raw videos or the, more authentic way that we present the way that like our information and who we are. And that's just really not true. Like people, there's the engagement that we get is just really like just the connections in the network are so much stronger than if we put something out that's just like perfectly polished, like doesn't really mean that it's going to perform any better or do serve us any better in what we're doing.
Yeah, like even my microphone, I'm trying to still figure out how it works. And, these past few episodes, people are commenting that, you can hear Sierra twice as loud as me or what. But, you realize like I'm trying to figure it out. And like you're saying, it's not polished, it's not perfect, but we're just trying to get better every time. And I think that's just part of the journey. And then you'll figure it out after a while.
Yeah, it definitely is a learning curve, but you can't master the learning curve unless you get started on it. So it takes a while and you just try to get a little bit better every day for sure.
Yeah, so for me, I kind of wanted to touch, and we touched on this off camera and talking about failures. And the one thing that I kind of always look back on is I kind of talked about it before in other episodes, but like my son's mom, when we were together, she decided to start a business. We were living in Honolulu, Hawaii, but she's from North Carolina, and she wanted to start a business back in North Carolina. And even though I was supportive of it, I look back and I realized that I probably wasn't as supportive as I could have been, especially when I'm trying to do this social media stuff now and trying to grow. I realized that how important it is to just, like things and share things and comment on posts. And that's a different way to be supportive on things.
Yeah. So do you feel like you fear failure?
Me, honestly, I don't think I fear it. I think I'm so used to or accustomed to just um, kind of going with the flow of things, and I don't really worry a lot about what other people think about me. I I think I've been fairly a confident person most of my life, and I I'm not trying to please everyone. So I think that's a part of it where I know failure is going to happen. I know, I'm going to rub people the wrong way, or people are going to laugh or mock what I'm doing. But as long as I'm happy and I'm enjoying it and I'm, being around certain people, then I think that's all that really matters.
So tell me, where did that come from? Did you always feel that way where you weren't so worried about other people's opinions, or did you have to redefine failure at some point? Or kind of like where did you get that confidence where you could kind of be yourself and not worry too much?
I think part of it is my dad is very low key, and things don't bother him very much. He doesn't get too high, he doesn't get too low, and he just takes things as they come. So a lot of people, my dad had a stroke when I first got into the fire department, and he's kind of paralyzed on the right, or he's pretty much paralyzed on the right side, but he's never let that stop him. And a lot of people, I think he inspires a lot of people because he goes to the gym every day, even though he can't really move his right side. And I think a lot of people would be embarrassed or maybe ashamed to be going to the gym, and in his condition. And for him, he doesn't care. He just goes and he hangs out and he makes all these cool friends over there. And I think people actually get inspired by seeing, they're like, if this guy can go to the gym every day, how come I can't be there? So I think he's actually inspiring a lot of people. And he his face is drooped, he doesn't speak super clearly, and he just doesn't let that kind of stuff bother him. So I think that's where I kind of picked up a lot of it from when I was younger. And I was always kind of on the smaller side, for my age group. And so I think for me, I failed a lot. I was never like a star, playing sports growing up. And so for me, it was just a lot of failure. And but I enjoyed things that I was doing, and you start to just realize that you put in the work and you still can be successful at it.
Yeah, I think you even commented recently like the acronym FAIL. I think you said what first action in learning or
Yeah, I don't know where
um
I saw that somewhere, so I can't take full credit for that. But yeah, it really hits home, and I put that on one of your posts or shares. You've
yeah.
been talking about failure and mindset also.
Yeah. So I was just like, okay, that must be the mindset that you identify with how you kind of look at failure as learning. And that's interesting that you've had it like modeled for you and um really used it as a tool and to make steps forward. So I can't say that everyone looks at failure that way. Like it's one of the bigger mindset shifts that has to happen. And I know I recently posted about making that mindset shift from fear to failure and how it or from fear of failure to action. And um it's really challenging. I mean, it is one of the big unlocks for a lot of people to move forward and get success because failure. I don't know if you're familiar with the Enneagram, but I'll go on a little tangent. But the Enneagram is a psychological tool that helps us understand our motivations and core fears behind our actions. And for some Enneagrams, and this is this is me, which is why this runs really deep for me, is that as an Enneagram 3, my core fear is failure. So this is the motivation behind, not just like a little bit of a fear, but it is so core to who I am that it drives most of my actions. So it's either my motivation, which is to be valuable, or my fear, which is to avoid failure, is going to drive most of my actions forward. And kind of understanding that why behind what you do is really helpful to, you know, awareness is the key, right? To change. So you have to kind of be aware that that is um, a fear. And so a lot of my life I have spent intentionally avoiding failure, which is what's made it hard to take action. And because like that's one of the easiest ways to avoid it is like I can't fail if I don't try. So I've had to redefine failure as not trying. And therefore, if I don't try, then that's when I feel like I've failed. That way, I'll actually go take action and can make those steps forward that I want to do to be successful. And so I've had to have that kind of mindset shift to redefine it in that way so that I'm not stalling out or avoiding things that I want to do just based on that fear.
That's interesting you bring that up because I think that's kind of the the lull that or complacency that I fell into before I got on this kind of real estate and financial freedom journey. I was really just kind of complacent at where I was at in life, comfortable. I thought everything I had or I needed, I had already. I had a primary residence, a great job, great benefits, and I think it wasn't so much avoiding failure, but it was just I don't need to fail in anything else, right? Like I'm good. And I think, but you kind of lose, like you were talking about, you kind of just lose that kind of passion or focus, I guess. And that's how you grow, at life. And I think that's what I was missing for, a short period of time in my life. And I think that's why I'm enjoying this journey of trying to, build a brand and, my real estate journey and, the property management side and, trying to connect with people like you. But I think that's what I was missing, and I'm having fun doing this.
Life really does kind of lose that vibrancy if you're not pushing yourself. I think we talked about that in a previous episode about pushing yourself to the edge is kind of like to grow is what makes you really feel like you're progressing. And not that you can't enjoy the moment and be present and just be content with what you have, but if you don't have that kind of growth, then it does kind of just lead to complacency or feel a little duller.
Exactly. And let's kind of, end this up. Let's talk about kind of your first, I guess maybe tweet or whatever it's called now that you've
Sure.
been on, in a long time. Sierra was hiding out on Twitter for a while, and everyone out there go follow her, check her out. She's joining the community we have over there. But you just recently tweeted failure, the expected guest at every entrepreneur's party. Use it as a feedback or redefine it altogether. So you want to touch on that a little bit?
Sure. Well, first I have to give credit to Hugo from the Stay Winning podcast because I listened to his episode with you where he talked about, one of the things we can control is where we're investing our time, and Instagram is not monetizable, I guess, but Twitter and YouTube are. And I was like, oh, why am I spending so much time on Instagram? And it really hit. So I was like, maybe I need to hop on Twitter and like reactivate my account and see what's going on over there. And so I put out that tweet on X, I should say. And I guess part of me just feels like maybe if I keep talking about it enough and put it out there, that if I've talked about how failure is so great, then maybe when I do fail, I won't feel so bad because I like prefaced everyone that it's like a good thing. So I won't be so worried about the judgment that comes with it. But it's funny because even after, or even when you wrote me, you're like, hey, do you want to talk about failing at something? Like when you wrote that and I read it, I immediately was like, no, this is terrible. Like I do not want to talk about failing. But I know that's just like that is my default response. And so I really do work to have a different mindset around that. And it does take effort. Like I don't want to make it out like it's easy. If something like that is really core to who you are, it does take a lot of work to grow out of it.
I think the big thing with failure, though, is you have to learn from it and not
Yeah.
keep making those same mistakes or failures again. And I think that's super important is that you fail, but you maybe learn on how you can do better the next time or correct that mistake.
Yeah, and as far as being an entrepreneur, it is so key, and it's so like you're just not going to make progress without the feedback that comes from failure. And if you don't know what flops, then you can't find what lands, and it's just it's and some of it's luck, and some of it's just consistency, and there's so many elements that go into the entrepreneurial journey, but failure is just a part of it. And even when we bought our rental property, taking that risk of, our nest egg and saying like, well, if this fails, like, will we come back from it? And if this doesn't, if we get tenants in here that don't pay, or what happens if this truly does fail? And you can calculate that risk obviously and mitigate it the best that you can, but there's still that risk out there, and you have to really be willing to to take that step and learn from it if it does happen, and then do better the next time.
Yeah. So hopefully I've learned too, and hopefully my sound is better on these next few episodes, and I've learned from whatever I did and why it was coming in so poorly recently. So hopefully I've corrected that issue. But it's always fun doing this. You know, I'm glad we can do this weekly and we can kind of fit it in our schedule. But I know your son is waiting for you and he's kind of checking in when you're going to finish this episode. So we can wrap it up here and we'll figure out another great topic for next week and we'll be back.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Sarah. Okay, bye.